What's up guys, Justin here, and I got a question for you. Have you ever heard the term Generation Alpha? It's actually a term that is used to describe you. It's the term given to anyone born in the year 2010 to now, and people are studying you, not in a weird way, but they're just studying your generation and trying to figure out who you are, how you behave, and what you will be known for in the years to come. And so far they've made a couple of conclusions, but one of those conclusions is this: you are passionate about wanting to help others. Anyone here ever serve like at church, helping out with kid worship, holding doors, or maybe on the tech team? Yeah. Well, when I was in middle school, I was weirdly good with babies. Like, it was one of my favorite things to do to help a screaming baby stop screaming. Not just because the baby stopped, but like because it felt good to help the babies, right? And I just loved it. I loved it so much that I started serving in the nursery here at church with my family. And I would come to church for an hour and I'd help play with the babies, hold them, maybe even change a stinky diaper or two. But fast forward to today, I am no longer in middle school. I no longer serve in the nursery. However, I have two very real life children of my own that I'm responsible for way more than 1 hour a week. See, the nursery never had me waking up with the babies in the middle of the night. The nursery never had me taking the babies to doctor's appointments. The nursery never had me prepared for my own babies growing up to be their own humans, right? And what I learned is that there is a huge difference between serving for a moment and serving in a movement. We've all probably experienced something like that. Maybe you got involved in an event, or you participated in a church cleanup day around your community, or you got involved at a club in your school, and the experience was awesome. It was impactful, maybe even life-changing for you in that moment, but then the moment was over. You went back to real life, and that feeling you experienced in the moment kind of began to fade as you went on with life. You see, we move when we see a need, but when our service is done, when the need is met, we kind of stop moving. You ever feel that way? You ever have that moment where you feel a little unfulfilled, like there has to be more to it? It isn't that the moments weren't great, it just takes more than moments to change the world, and you know this. We've got to move, and we've got to keep moving to create a movement. And I want to take a look actually at how Jesus shows us to move. And if we can grab a hold of this, the movement could be incredible. You see, Jesus cared a lot about serving others, just like you, Generation Alpha. Jesus didn't just start a religion. No, he sparked a movement that took over the world. His followers became known around the world for how they loved other people and how they served them. It was an active love. They made a lifestyle out of feeding the poor, giving to the needy, taking in the homeless, and fighting for the freedom of others. When Jesus was on earth, a lot of people had a lot of questions about who Jesus was and what he was all about. And I think Jesus summarizes himself and explains himself in a really powerful way in John chapter 10, verse 11. Here's what it says. Jesus says, "I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd sacrifices his life for his sheep." Plain and simple. Plain and simple. You see, what's important to know here is, to us that feels really random. It's like, Jesus, I feel like you're like a little bit more than a shepherd. But the people that Jesus was talking to, they knew a ton about shepherds. He was speaking their language. He chose that illustration to help everyone around him understand how he felt about his people and why he behaved the way that he did. You see, he was always moving from place to place, helping people along the way. From the time he started his ministry until his death, he was serving someone constantly. And he looked at his people the way a good shepherd looks at his sheep. And this just made sense to the people he was talking to. Jesus actually goes on, and he goes on to say this in verse 14. He says, "I am the good shepherd." There again, speaking their language. "I know my own sheep, and they know me, just as my Father knows me, and I know the Father. So I sacrifice my life for my sheep." You see, every time Jesus encountered people hurting or in need, he was willing to take care of their needs. He took care of their needs by teaching them, protecting them, serving them. He was constantly putting other people before himself. And eventually, Jesus literally laid down his life like what he says in these verses. He literally laid down his life by dying on the cross for the sake of the people in need, and that's all of us. You see, when I was in the nursery, taking care of kids was a moment in my week. It was an hour that I would come and it would go. And now raising my boys into men is something that I do all the time. And for Jesus, serving was not just about an event. It wasn't a moment in his day or his week. It was a way of life for him. And he did more than just talk about it. He lived it. He served all of the time. It was just his way of life. Jesus didn't see service as just a box to be checked. He lived his whole life focusing on the needs of others. He saw them and he met them. Do you see others in need as you go about your day? Maybe you're about to go back to school. Look for students who have needs that you could help serve through a kind word, helping with homework, protection from a kid who makes fun of them, someone to sit with at lunch. Some of these things are so simple that they don't feel as glamorous or important as a big event. You may wonder if they matter at all, but I'm here to tell you, and Jesus is showing us that they do. Consider what it would look like if you didn't just see the needs around you, but you tried to meet them. Would you be willing to lay down your convenience or your comfort for the sake of someone else the way that Jesus did? When we choose to serve the way Jesus did, we can experience the joy of living the way that God built us to live. We can be a part of a movement, and in the process, we just might change the world. God, I love you, and we'll see you next time.